Back once again for the renegade master. 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 Back once again for the renegade master.
Hello my renegades, and we are back to Married at First Sight, Series 8, Episode 8. And we have some more to talk about, don't we? But before we get into this episode, as I always say, please hit that subscribe button, please hit that notification button so when you know I am back on and doing videos. And we shall get back into this episode right now. So we know it's the next day after the freaking diabolical dinner party. I shall call it Portia Ligate. That's what we're going to call it, Portia Ligate, because wow, I've heard of embellishments, but raw, that was an embellishment and a half. That's all I can say on that. Everyone is talking about Portia and Terence. Portia is then feeling that Terence had betrayed her, and I'm like, how did this man betray you? Like, seriously, how did this man betray you? Because the stories that you keep coming out with right now is getting ridiculous. Like, it's really bordering on ridiculoso. Like, seriously ridiculoso. She keeps on saying that Terence called her fake, but Terence didn't actually call her fake. He didn't turn around and say, oh, I think you're faking X, Y, and Z. That's what she intimated from what he said. He didn't correct her and he didn't disprove her. It's what she gathered from what he said, but he didn't actually say the words that I think you're fake. He didn't say those words in any way, shape or form. And then we have Ella and Nathaniel at it again. And I'm like, these people really have no motherfucking listening skills at all. Like, seriously have no listening skills. They have no conversational skills, because all they want to do is shout over each other. How are you going to... Shouting over each other ain't going to help, is it really? Ain't going to help the wayward traction of your conversation, because it just ain't going to get you nowhere, but you're getting louder and louder and louder and louder, thinking, if I shout even louder, this person's going to hear what I'm saying. But they're not hearing what the hell you're saying. So then we moved to Roz and Thomas, and oh my God, it felt like they'd entered hell, like it had frozen over. It was so cold between them, like literally cold between them. And you could see there was a change in Thomas completely. So basically, he's saying that they had sex. They had sex basically, and it kind of led to the fact that he gave her a hug, and it moved on from there to the point where this girl Roz was literally ripping his clothes off basically, and I'm just like, I'm just like, if you have no attraction to this man, why would you then have sex with him and then carry on like nothing happened the following day? That's like a kick in the teeth to Thomas, like a proper kick in the teeth. And what she needs to realise is that will send him back in terms of his relationship with his ex-partner and the trauma that he continues to have from that, in terms of how she behaved with him. Yeah, that was poor behaviour from Roz. On my part, that was poor behaviour. On my opinion, I just say that was poor, piss poor behaviour from Roz at the end of the day. In my outcomes, because it's coming up to the first commitment ceremony, I was basically thinking that Portia and Terence should go home, Ella and Nathaniel should go home, and Roz and Thomas should go home, because at this point, is there any point, like, is there any point of going any further when it's literally broken down so much? Is there really? So, you know, when you get to the first commitment ceremony and everybody falls in their couples and sits on the sofas, camera shot to Thomas, and he was just like, oh my, he just looked like he wanted to leave then and there, like completely wanted to leave then and there. He was so angry, and he was literally, he had that barrier down, like, for Roz, don't come any closer to me because I'm not expecting anything from you. That barrier was completely down in between of them, and he was just sitting there. And as I say, this is always a defensive pose. This is always a defensive pose, as if to say, you're not getting past my barriers at the end of the day. And that's what Thomas was doing. So first to the seat is Tasha and Paul, and they were gushing about each other. They did not have a bad thing to say about each other. And basically in the sex department, as Paul says, they ain't gone to full Monty. They've had bits and bobs, but he's allowing Tasha to make that move when she wants to make that move and be comfortable in making that move. So basically her insecurities were rearing up, and they both wrote stay, which we knew was going to happen anyway. Then we get to Ella and Nathaniel, and all the gushing that they have happens at first. And basically Nathaniel was talking about sometimes he can be emotionally unavailable. Dude, we've seen it. Completely seen it. I ain't gonna disagree with you there. Completely seen it. And that his boundaries are quite tight, and Ella struggles with those. So basically they asked him outright, Nathaniel, do you fancy Ella? And I thought anything other than yes is going to be a problem. And he basically said, I don't know. But Ella fancies him, but she also is saying that she needs that physical attraction with him as well. And he was basically saying that Ella is a lot of things that he didn't want. Now, I knew this. I knew this without him even saying that there's things about Ella that he really did not want and cannot compute with. I was kind of hoping it wouldn't be that she's a trans woman, but it wasn't that. Basically, it was the fact that he did throw it out there. It was the fact that she'd been a stripper previously, and I thought it was a fucked up way of, as I already said in my previous episodes before this, when he did it, he outed her, like outed a profession that she probably didn't even tell her family members and friends about, and you just fucking told the motherfucking nation. He did apologize for doing that, and he said that he shouldn't have done that in that sense. And all I would say is that I think there's something going, this is just my opinion, I think there's something going on there for Nathaniel that he hasn't actually healed from. And this is what I say about coming on these types of shows. If you've had some type of trauma, or especially in a relationship, especially in terms of Thomas, and then having to come on this type of show to be with someone and then navigate that relationship, especially if it's not working out right, how do you do that? How do you do that if you haven't dealt with your own inner traumas yourself? That's my question. How do you do that? How do you enter a relationship without you feeding your traumas into that relationship and onto that person if you haven't dealt with your own traumas? And that's the thing that they need to do. They need to work on their freaking traumas and their insecurities and everything that they've had in terms of toxicity in relationships, rather so that then don't transfer what they've had onto that person. So basically Ella did break down and she showed her vulnerability. And basically he said that he liked that part of her and he wanted to see that part of Ella more. And I'm hoping that he's true to his word in that, because at the end of the day, the only way you're going to get someone to break down in terms of vulnerability and for them to show you their vulnerability is they have to feel safe with you. They have to feel safe and they have to be able to feel like they trust you. Right now, I don't think Ella trusted Nathaniel, especially with the fact that she trusted him with some personal information that wasn't privy to everyone, and he literally let that loose in front of the nation. So then we get to Shona and Brad, and I'm sorry people, as I said, that these two, the way that they're going, they're going to get on my tits. And they're already giving me the ick. Like they're kind of giving me the ick already. I'm glad it's working for them, but they are kind of giving me the ick. Shona is saying that she's quite a bit of a prude when it comes to talking about sex and that, and she doesn't talk about sex that much. But I'm like, you literally show with your actions where used to have been and what you've been doing with each other, to be honest with you. So I don't know how sex is a bit of a problem for you to speak about, to be honest. They'd already talked about having kids, which was pretty quick in terms of how many they do want, and they used the word love. And as again the difficulty, as I said with Shona, is she falls in love quick, fast and hard, and then it doesn't always work out in regards to that, because love is not the be all and end all to a relationship. There's a lot of other factors in terms of keeping a relationship or more or less a marriage in that sense. she's basically saying that, you know, she's never felt so compatible with someone, and he's saying that it's love and not lust. Now, there's a fine line between love and lust, like there's a fine line between love and hate, as you see, case in point with Portia and Terence. There's a fine line between love and hate. There's a fine line between love and lust, and for me right now, my opinion is I think they're showing more lust than they are love in that sense. But I don't profess to know anything about love because, anyway, as again, we'll see how that plays out for them. And then we get to Roz and Thomas. And I must say this. I think Roz used Thomas. In the sexual department, I think Roz used Thomas. She used him basically to see whether she could build that attraction with him. And when she couldn't build that attraction with him through the sex and through the touching, she then stepped back. And I thought that was a fucked up way to do it. That was an absolutely disrespectful and fucked up way to do it, that you would do that to some person. Oh, and I forgot. Yeah, Brad and Shona did write stay on their cards, so they're staying. I forgot about that. So he was saying that he basically felt cheated, and I'm like, I would feel the same way. How are you not attracted to me, but then you're going to use my body for your own means to see if you can grow an attraction? Having sex does not grow an attraction, because you at least had to have some semblance of something to even get you revved up to the point where you had sex with Thomas at the end of the day. She had to have some point of something. But then it's the fact that that act led Thomas into a world of believing that actually they're moving on, or they're getting to the same page with each other, when in actuality didn't. And she wouldn't even look at him. That's the piss take of it all. When they were sat on the sofas, she wouldn't even look at him. And they did ask her about what she felt like when she first saw him, and she did admit that there wasn't an attraction there, like, and she didn't have an initial attraction there when she first saw him. And I keep on saying that, you know, I think she's going to trigger his traumas from the times of his ex, and this experiment is going to be worse for him than it is going to be good for him. But at the end of the day, he decided not to give up, basically, and he wrote stay, and Roz wrote stay as well. So I'm like, okay, obviously he is above glutton for punishment, but we'll see how your journey takes on after that. Then we get to Laura and Arthur. Arthur was asked, like, how do you think Laura's looking right now? And he didn't give a proper compliment. I'm like, my guy, if you're gonna give a girl a compliment, give her a proper compliment and say that she looks beautiful, or the dress that she wears accentuates her skin, or it makes her eyes pop. Not that, look at her. Have you seen her? Look at her. I'm like, Ross, man, come on now. At least Laura admitted to the point where she was saying that, you know, she always wanted a Chelsea boy and what she envisioned being her husband, but she also knew that what she had been picking hadn't been right for her. And basically, Arthur did talk about that sometimes Laura can be quite closed off. And my thinking is they talked about the vows situation where he took vows off the internet, and I was like, oh no, and I'm thinking, but nobody actually brought up the fact that he rectified it on the honeymoon, and she loved the fact that he rectified it and actually produced heartfelt vows just for her. And I thought that was a bit of a cop-out, because Laura could have turned around and said, well, actually, he did do this and this is how it made me feel, but I have to give him kudos for the fact that he actually went away, took on board what I said, and rectified it by writing his own heartfelt vows on the last day. And he read them out on our last day on the honeymoon, which I absolutely adored that he did. None of that. And I thought that was quite strange, that, you know what, nobody mentioned that the fact that he actually rectified the situation with the vows. Anyway, they both wrote stay. It was a stay. Then we get to Peggy and George. And I think Peggy was talking about how she doesn't really know him. And I'm like, she kind of annoys me a little bit as well. I thought George was going to annoy me. I really did. But as I've said, I've got this base level humour. So I kind of get George in that sense. And I would have found the shit that he said absolutely funny, because I would have fed into it, to be honest with you. I do continue to think that she's going to be a little bit controlling of him. And I do believe that she is making a mountain out of a molehill, because she brought up the whole squat situation again, and the conversation around him being okay with his wife doing page 3 and all, like, porn industry and da. So yeah, again, even though he'd rectified it on 2 occasions, she still had to bring it up and say that it was still an issue for her, and she felt better once she'd spoken to the experts to say that there's nothing to worry about. Now she feels there's nothing to worry about. And I'm like, like, come on, my girl, come on. Seriously? They both wrote stay. And then we get to Jay and Luke. And they are so cute together, like, really so cute together. But when Jay speaks, I didn't know Laura went, and I'm like, she always turns her nose up when Jay speaks. Are you that put off by the way that Jay speaks? If you are, then you should start wearing earplugs, because Jay's going to be speaking a lot more often. Okay? Frig, concentrate on your own freaking marriage and relationship at the end of the day, and leave Jay to her own. So yeah, I do. I really like Jay. I do. They're closer, they're open and honest, and Luke was talking about how good the sex is, and of course Jay writes stay and Luke writes stay, and then we get to Portia and Terence. Oh my god. And it wasn't the end. It wasn't the end at all. And I'm like, Terence is talking about the fact that it's always Portia. It's always what Portia wants. It's the Portia show. It does da. And he's saying that he's compromised, but there's been no us time for them in that regard. So then Portia basically turns around and says the fact that, you know what, this is what I do. I've tried to give certain time where time is due in that sense. My thing is Terence then told the gist of the whole situation that had happened at the dinner, and that he didn't throw a spoon at her, and he didn't say what Portia is saying. And Portia's looking at him like, and I'm like, but Terence is telling the truth. Terence is telling the truth, my girl. It's you that embellished on this shit and then kept this shit running. Like, come on, we are watching this. It's on a screen. You can't tell us that we are not seeing and hearing what we're not seeing and hearing at the end of the day. It's on the bloody screen. And I'm sorry, but Portia was lying. Portia was lying. So basically, remember when I said that Portia walked in to the dinner party by herself, and I thought it was down to Portia, but it wasn't. It was Terence's decision that they do that. And it was a major insult to Portia and her Congolese culture, and that's when I kind of understood where Portia was coming from, because at least if they were on the outs, they don't show that to the outside world. They put up a united front and actually should have walked in together, because that's what Portia wanted, for them to at least walk in together, put on a united front, even if they are on the outs, because them not doing that within her culture shows a high level of disrespect to the family and to her as the wife. And I thought, okay, right, okay, so I can understand now a bit of the behavior of how Portia was during that dinner party, because of how that situation and scenario occurred, and especially with the fact that Terence fucking blanked her the way in which he blanked her. That was out of this world. That was out of this world. I could never side with Terence after he did that shit. The only thing I would side with is the fact that I don't like liars in that sense, and Portia was like embellishing of the truth in that. They are both responsible for the situation that they've caught themselves in, and now they're both responsible to having to try and work this shit out. But the most horrible thing is that Terence wanted to leave, which I actually thought was a good idea. He should leave. Like, they both should have left at that point, because it was clear that they're on two separate planes and it was not working for them. But then on the flip side, it's kind of like Terence wanted to give up so easily and Portia still wanted to work with it, because Portia wrote stay. And as a stipulation state, because one partner writes stay, you then have to stay within that experiment for another week. I don't know how it's going to work out for both of them, to be honest with you. I really don't know how it's going to work out for both of them, especially how he was so ready to leave and leave her behind. But I'm like, it's bare openness at this point. Portia's got to look to herself as well, and how she can compromise with him and make this right, how they can both make this right together. But I don't think they're going to get it right without some extra expert advice. They're going to need that counselling, or if they can give them couples counselling or something like that, they're going to need that in order to make it right, because these are two stubborn people. Portia and Terence are two stubborn people alike. So how in the hell, when you've got one thinking that they're right and the other thinking that they're right, that you're going to try and make this work? Because it ain't going to work, not without support and help, it ain't. Anyway, that is where I'm going to leave it for this episode, and I will be back very, very soon. As I always say, please hit that subscribe button, please hit that notification button, so when you know I am back and doing videos. And I'll speak to you all again soon, my renegades. Peace out and love.